Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In today's episode, we will share some true terrifying park horror stories. We all think parks, places of peace, fun, and escape. But when the sun sets and shadows stretch, they can become something much darker. Hidden among the trees and empty trails are stories that defy explanation, leaving behind chilling memories and unanswered questions. But before starting the video, please consider giving us a like also. If you have any terrifying or unnerving experiences of your own, feel free to reach out and share your story with us. Who knows, it might even be featured in one of our future episodes. Now turn down the lights, grab a blanket. Liam loved running in the evenings, a time when the park was quiet and the golden hues of sunset painted the trees. On this particular evening, he decided to try a new trail, one that looped deep into the woods. He'd heard a few stories about people getting lost in that area, but brushed them off as exaggerated warnings. The trail was well maintained, and the map at the entrance made it look easy to navigate. As Liam jogged deeper into the park, he noticed how silent it became. The usual chirping of crickets and rustling leaves seemed to fade, replaced by an eerie stillness. He checked his phone. No service. Still, he shrugged it off and kept going, his breathing and the crunch of gravel beneath his sneakers the only sounds. About 20 minutes into his run, Liam thought he heard faint whispers. At first, he assumed it was the wind threading through the dense trees. But as he ran further, the whispers grew louder, almost like a soft chant. He stopped, trying to pinpoint the source, but the sound seemed to surround him. "Hello?" he called out, his voice shaky. No response. He glanced around, noticing the sun had dipped lower than he'd realized. The forest now looked darker, shadows stretching ominously across the trail. As Liam turned to head back, he felt the whispers intensify. They weren't just random murmurs anymore. They were forming words, and worse, they were saying his name. "Liam, come closer." His stomach twisted. Panic began to creep in, but he told himself it was just his imagination. Picking up his pace, he started jogging back toward the entrance, but with each step, the voices grew louder, more insistent. Suddenly, the trail felt unfamiliar. Hadn't he passed this tree before? His surroundings seemed to warp, the once clear path now overgrown with twisted roots and brambles. He pulled out his phone for light, but it refused to turn on, even though it was fully charged earlier. Then came the touch, a cold, icy grip on his shoulder. Spinning around, Liam found nothing but empty air. His breathing quickened, and he broke into a full sprint, desperate to find his way out. When he finally burst out of the woods and into the open park, he collapsed onto the grass, gasping for breath. The whispers stopped. The air felt normal again. Sarah loved taking her son Ethan to the park every evening after work. It was their little routine, a way to unwind after a long day. Ethan's favorite spot was the swings, where he'd spend hours laughing as Sarah pushed him higher and higher. One evening, they arrived later than usual. The park was nearly empty, with only the faint hum of distant traffic and the occasional chirp of birds returning to their nests. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the playground. "5 more minutes, Ethan," Sarah said, feeling a twinge of unease. Something about the park felt off tonight. Ethan, as usual, begged for more time, and Sarah relented. As she pushed him on the swing, she noticed the other swing beside him start to move. It wasn't a gentle sway, but a deliberate back and forth motion, as if someone invisible were sitting on it. Sarah paused, staring at the empty swing. "Must be the wind," she murmured, trying to convince herself. But Ethan suddenly stopped laughing. He gripped the chains tightly and looked at the empty swing. "Mom, do you see him?" he whispered. "See who?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "The boy in the red shirt. He says he wants to play." Sarah's blood ran cold. She looked around the park, but it was completely empty. Grabbing Ethan, she lifted him off the swing and headed for the car. Ethan protested, saying the boy hadn't finished talking to him. That night, as Sarah tucked Ethan into bed, he mentioned the boy again. He said he's been waiting a long time for someone to play with. Sarah tried to dismiss it as her son's overactive imagination, but the next morning she mentioned the incident to a neighbor, who froze mid-sentence. "You saw him too?" the neighbor asked. Jason was a creature of habit. Every night at 10 p.m., he laced up his running shoes and headed to the park for his nightly jog. The late hour meant he often had the trails to himself, something he enjoyed. The solitude helped him clear his mind. On one particular night, the air was crisp, and a light fog rolled in, making the park feel like something out of a dream or a nightmare. As Jason rounded a familiar bend, he spotted another runner ahead of him. The runner wore a bright red hoodie, the color vivid even in the dim light. Jason was surprised. He rarely saw anyone else at this hour. Deciding to catch up and say hello, he quickened his pace. But no matter how fast he ran, the distance between them remained the same. The other runner moved effortlessly, their strides eerily smooth. Jason pushed himself harder, his breath coming in sharp bursts. "Hey!" he called out. "Wait up!" The figure didn't respond. Instead, they veered off the main path and into the woods. Jason hesitated. Something about this felt wrong, but curiosity got the better of him. He followed, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the thick fog. As he entered the woods, the air grew colder. The trees loomed closer together, their gnarled branches twisting like skeletal hands. The sound of the other runner's footsteps disappeared, replaced by an unsettling silence. Then, from the corner of his eye, Jason saw a flash of red. Turning, he spotted the runner standing perfectly still, facing away from him. "Hey, are you okay?" Jason asked, his voice shaking. The figure turned slowly, and Jason's stomach dropped. Where a face should have been, there was only a blank, pale expanse, as if someone had erased their features. Jason stumbled back, his flashlight shaking in his hand. The figure tilted its head, as if studying him, before breaking into a sprint, straight toward him. Jason didn't wait to find out what would happen next. He bolted out of the woods, his legs burning as he ran faster than he ever thought possible. He didn't stop until he reached the park's exit, collapsing onto the pavement. Later, Jason learned from a local news article that several joggers had reported seeing a figure in red who would vanish into thin air. The legend claimed it was the spirit of a woman who had disappeared in the park years ago.